Who are you?
Oh,
Who's this guy?
Cody. I'm here for finance.
Finance?
Yeah, isn't this the news?
No, this is no. Well, we talk sports here. I mean, Vince and I are on the show all the time. Who are you?
I was told to come here for finance.
I'm sorry.
You're mistaken, because this is SportsZone.
I should go. This is very uncomfortable.
Well, this is SportsZone.
Hello and welcome to SportsZone. This is episode number 5. We did a nice benchmark number there, number 5. 5 shows in on the season. I'm Dan. I got Ryan. We got a great show in store for you today. We're going to start, as we have the last 2 weeks, with our rapid fire segment. Again, this is just kind of things that we probably won't get to throughout the rest of the show, and we wanted to touch on because they're of significance, athletic significance, cultural significance, whatever as it may be. Today we actually have a big story on societal significance, I guess you could say. An assistant coach of the Bryant University basketball team has come out as a member of the LGBTQ community. And to my knowledge, the first coach to do so. There's been a handful of players who've come out, most notably Michael Sam, the football player, right before he was supposed to go to the NFL and get drafted. And there's been a few, Jason Collins in the NBA. But the first coach to come out. So Ryan, what do you think is the big significance of this?
I think this is a huge deal for collegiate athletics, especially. You don't hear. I think the last one, to my knowledge, of a collegiate athlete coming out was the goaltender from Dartmouth a couple of years back in lacrosse. But I think that, as you said earlier, this is probably the first time a coach has come out, and I think the Bryant basketball team is going to be very supportive about it. They're going to still respect him as a coach, regardless of his sexual orientation or preference. He's still their leader, and he's still their basketball person. So he really is going to have to. He's really going to have to work a little bit harder, and people are going to start to question him a little bit at first. But after a while, they keep winning games. He's still, at the end, their coach.
Absolutely, and you certainly, I think it's an indication of kind of where we're going, where more and more people are getting comfortable enough to kind of come out. And college is, sometimes not the greatest environment for that. Obviously, American University, we try really hard, but it's not always, especially, you never know what you're going to get, but I agree. I think it's a big deal, and I'm sure the players will have plenty of support for him. Moving along away from the NCAA, we're going to move to some international football, soccer. Of course, we had a big match, actually, between Mexico and the United States just the other day, this past weekend. And this one actually went to extra time. Big match between these two teams, which have faced each other countless times. The famous 2-0 games over and over again, where the U.S. has kind of had Mexico's number lately. Not the case this weekend, though.
No, Mexico came out with the win 3-2. It was the latest the United States have ever given up a goal. Aguilar found the way to get it past Brad Guzan. But the Rose Bowl was very, very live this weekend, and it was obviously a big match. The United States will not be going to the Confederations Cup, as Mexico will be. Many people wonder, is the United States now going to make the World Cup? My personal opinion, I still think they're very alive in the World Cup race. They've still got the Gold Cup to play in. They still have plenty more tournaments in CONCACAF that they can possibly win.
Absolutely, and I think it'd be a shock to most people if the United States ended up not making the World Cup. I mean, we're not, especially on the men's side, really, we're not a soccer powerhouse, but we're usually good enough that we're there and we're kind of on the world stage and we can win a match or two. Obviously, the last World Cup they did went pretty far.
The last 2 World Cups they've found a way to make to the knockout stage twice. The first in South Africa, they got knocked out by Ghana in the knockout stage.
Always Ghana.
In extra time again. And this year they came very close with Belgium, who was another powerhouse team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as we said, it'd be a bit of a surprise, I think, if they were left off the World Cup. It'll probably all be fine. As you said, Gold Cup, I believe we won the Gold Cup 2 years ago?
We did win the Gold. We're defending Gold Cup.
Defending Gold Cup champions, so a lot to look forward to in the soccer world. But that is all the time we have here for this edition of Rapid Fire, this segment, Rapid Fire. We got more Sports Zone coming up after this, so stay tuned.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our NFL segment going for 2. I'm Deepak Bhagat and I'm joined by both Justin and Vince. And guys, right now we're wrapping up Week 5, apart from tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Steelers and the Chargers. Most of the games pretty exciting, actually. 3 of them going to overtime. The Patriots doing what we all expected them to do in terms of blowing out the Cowboys. The Eagles playing a full game for the first time ever and coming out with their second win. But first, I guess we could throw it right over to the Monday Night Football game regarding the Steelers and the Chargers, and to our resident Steelers fan, Vince. Both teams are 2-2 right now. Mike Vick is still at the helm for the Steelers, yet the Chargers are still looking like that solid, mediocre team that they've always been. I know that's kind of a dichotomy right there, but it's true. Yeah. So based off last week's performance, what do you expect going into this game tonight?
Well, last week when the Steelers just threw away the game against the Ravens, Mike Vick only had 1 day of practice going in. He had the full week. They had their Thursday game, so he had a long time to prepare for this one. The Steelers are also getting back Martavis Bryant from his 4-game suspension, so that gives them a deep threat over the top. So could possibly add another element. But on the flip side of the coin, the Chargers are getting back Antonio Gates, who has been Philip Rivers' safety blanket for the past several years. Both teams are kind of at a crossroads. Not really sure whether they're going to continue to contend, as their division rivals are pulling away from the Bengals and the Broncos respectively. So this will be kind of a big game in the season, particularly for the Steelers, as they have tough games coming up against the Cardinals, against the Raiders, who they've traditionally struggled against, and against the Bengals, who are undefeated. So
yeah, and I mean, you just said it. The division right there is actually pretty tough this year. Apart from the Ravens, who have been really struggling, you have the Bengals are playing solid, still undefeated. And the Browns came away with that overtime win against the Ravens. And so going along the lines of the overtime wins, Justin, we had 3 big overtime games this weekend. We had, obviously, the Browns coming out against the Ravens, the undefeated Cincinnati Bengals taking out the Seattle Seahawks, and then, of course, the Atlanta Falcons also preserving their undefeated season against the Redskins. So ultimately 3 solid performances. I think the biggest takeaway, though, would have been the Seahawks Bengals game, considering they blew a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. And so based off of those games, and the fact that you still have 2 undefeateds out of the 6, I think, that are remaining, what's your takeaway from that, as well as, going ahead then with the undefeateds, kind of going ahead and ranking those teams?
I do think that the biggest overtime game was the Bengal and Seahawks game, simply because it showed that the Seahawks defense is not that powerhouse that it used to be. They have not been able to put the dagger in the heart of other teams. We haven't seen the Seahawks blow a lead like that in the past 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then they come out against and they were away, but they should have been able to put the dagger in the heart against Andy Dalton. I don't think he's a quarterback that can consistently put together drives and win games in the fourth quarter. So that, to me, that was the biggest game. The Falcons looked not too great to me, to be honest with you. I mean, their offense was the part of the team that held the team together against the Redskins. They drove the ball down the field consistently, and they kept them in the game. I don't think the Falcons' defense is going to be able to keep them in the hunt later in the year. It is week 5. Right now they're playing well, but come week 14, 15, 16, and playoffs, the Falcons' defense is going to have to play a lot better for them to go deep into the playoffs, and I don't see them doing that.
Yeah, I mean, part of me would disagree on the Falcons' assessment based off the fact that offensively I'd actually say that there really wasn't much there. I mean, Matt Ryan struggled throughout. Devontae Freeman, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he scored 8 touchdowns in the past 3 games, or 4 games, but he only had 1. Compared to what we've seen the past 2 weeks. Yes, he racked up the yardage, but there really wasn't much there on the offensive level. I mean, we saw that it was one. First off, the Redskins took it to overtime late, but then it was just won fairly easily, fairly quickly. So it's a matter of where you see those offensive playing out. I think the defense is the part that carries the team, and then based off all these other games, a lot of low-scoring games. Teams that came away with 1-point wins, or played strong throughout and then barely hung on to win or barely lost. One team that I feel is affected for the future, though, is the Kansas City Chiefs. They just lost their star running back, Jamal Charles, for what could perhaps be the whole season. Vince, how do you think this affects a team that we all know has historically struggled the past 2 seasons with throwing touchdowns to the receivers? Now you lose your biggest weapon right there.
Yeah, I think you would say that it is significant, but it's not something that the Chiefs are not used to. Jamal Charles, while he is an explosive running back and he's a very high top 5 caliber running back in the league. He's very injury prone just based on his size. He's not a big guy, and just the defense is knocking him around. He's suffered a torn ACL already before, and now this knee injury. Not going to speculate on the significance of it, but it looks like he'll miss the entire season. So I feel like, the Chiefs should be used to this, but they've not shown in the past that they've been able to cope with it. They do have, Travis Kelce, Niles Davis probably might get a couple more carries now. They did bring in Jeremy Maclin, trying to solidify their wide receiving core, but really their offense, even when they have had Jamal Charles, has not looked very good this year. So I feel like, they're going to really have to lean onto that defense even more than they have when they've had their full arsenal of weapons healthy.
Yeah, and a lot of things that we just didn't expect this weekend. Injuries to, Aaron Rodgers throwing his first pick at Lambeau since 2012, as well as, the newest member of the 400 touchdown club, Drew Brees, struggling against the Eagles. So basically, since we're running out of time real quick, I want to look ahead to Week 6. And I guess take away from you guys what you think the biggest game then will be. So let's start with Vince and come on down.
I think it'll be, we touched on the undefeated teams, the Bengals and the Falcons. I think it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back after really struggling and kind of really having to pull the game out at the end, see if they bounce back with a strong performance to solidify themselves, or if they kind of struggle and slip and just kind of show that they're not the superior teams maybe we thought they were going in based on their records.
Mm-hmm. Justin?
I'm going to go to the Colts, and their next game is the biggest game, I think, because they have not played well.
No.
Yes, they're winning the division, and their division is extremely weak, but they have not played well at all. Mm-hmm. And I know that Andrew Luck's out with a shoulder injury, but they still have to find ways to win. They have a very easy schedule, and they have the easiest division in the NFL. Yeah. And they haven't played well at all. And that's a team that should mow through their division and definitely solidify a playoff spot. And if they were in any other division, I'd say they'd be in the bottom 2.
And for me, I'd have to say it's next week's Monday Night Football game between now the NFC East leading New York Giants against the Eagles. We have 3 teams in the division with a 2-3 record. However, with that, the Eagles are still probably 3rd in the division behind the Redskins, who have a divisional win, or 2 divisional wins, and then obviously the Giants who are leading it. I think whoever comes out of that, based off this constantly in flux division, that'll be a real telling sign going forward in the next weeks. Anyway, that's all the time that we have for Going for 2. Stay tuned for more Sports Zone coming at you next.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Sports Zone. This is Ice Time. I'm Rachel here with Ryan, and I think the only way to start off this week's segment is to talk about the ultimate Philly failure of their 7-1 loss to the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, it was not pretty in South Beach. Florida, who is definitely a young and up-and-coming team, just absolutely took it to the Philadelphia Flyers. Dave Haxtell in his second game of this year, just something wasn't clicking right in South Philly, and they need to really right the ship. Otherwise, they are going to be in the bottom of the Metropolitan Division again.
That is true. Now, David Haxtell spent the past 11 seasons coaching University of North Dakota, and while he did say he is disappointed with the loss, he is trying to improve their momentum. He held a players-only meeting after the game, and he said, quote, in the press conference, "We're going to deal with it honestly. Most of those dealings will take place in the locker room." So I think there might be some attitude problems on the lines.
Well, I think Dave Haxtell is one of the most successful college coaches in the country. He took North Dakota very far in a very short period of time. They were a nothing program, and they became a very big deal. Definitely, he's gonna take care of it. The Flyers will right the ship. They will win hockey games. They definitely have the talent to do it. Yeah, I mean, they still have Giroux and Voracek. They have a young defensive in Shen, and now Gostisbehere, who's coming up through the system. So they'll take care of it. I'm not worried.
Next up, we'd like to talk about the 2 sweethearts of the NHL draft. I think we're going to start with number 1, Connor McDavid. Unfortunately, he's not doing as well as expected. On the Saturday game against Nashville, him and the Oilers, they lost, and he specifically lost nearly every faceoff he took on the ice. And I think everybody's really surprised about his lack of speed.
Well, I think Connor McDavid's also still he's obviously very young. He's 3 months older than I am. He's got a lot of time. He'll be just fine. He's a great player. He was number 1 overall for a reason. You saw what he could do in World Junior Championships. You saw what he did in Erie. He'll be fine. He's got to adjust to the speed just like everybody else does. Edmonton also doesn't have necessarily the best team around him, because you can't put him and Eberle and Taylor Hall on one line. Then you'd have no balance. So I think where you compare him to Eichel on the whole 1-2 thing, I think Eichel has a little bit more of a team around him to worry about, where McDavid's kind of a little bit more in by himself.
And speaking of Eichel, we would love to talk about how he has had such a big impact on the Buffalo Sabres this year. PR-wise, they're using him and the momentum to start their next chapter. That's the big thing they're promoting lately. And along with his first goal of his NHL career, that was also their first goal of the game against the Senators on October 8th. They were down 2-0. Eichel made it 2-1, and that is when they debuted their brand new goal song that really got the crowd fired up. It is Let Me Clear My Throat by DJ Kool, a big throwback for you all. Ironically, that song is older than Jack Eichel.
Yeah, it's very interesting of why they picked that song of all songs, but it's definitely hilarious to see that, especially when Eichel going short side. It was definitely comical to hear it. Normally, as in years past, you really haven't heard a lot of goal horns going off in Buffalo, but I think you'll be hearing a lot more. So I think there'll be a lot more reason to be comical and have a good time listening to Buffalo goal songs.
Yes, even though they did still lose on the road, fans are very excited. And actually, in today's game that just ended of Buffalo against Columbus, Jack Eichel did manage to tally another point and score again. They did lose 4-2, unfortunately. And some other highlights we have around our Lundqvist just right on fire again, starting the season up extremely strong.
Yeah, Henrik Lundqvist is starting to play like vintage Henrik Lundqvist. He absolutely took Ryan Johansson to school this weekend. Making a paddle save on a wide open net is just absolutely insane. You don't see that often. Definitely the team in front of him is playing extremely well. They're definitely giving him a lot of support. The Rangers, I wasn't, even being a Ranger fan, I was not sold on how they were going to do this year. And I was certainly not sold on their young rookie, Oscar Lindberg, who was named one of the 3 stars of the week.
Yes, this is true.
Oscar Lindberg is playing outstanding hockey right now. He's he's anchoring pretty much that third line with Stallberg and Miller. He's playing really well. They have good chemistry in the third line, and the Rangers are just playing a complete hockey game.
Also, for the Boston Bruins, Zdeno Chara has been day-to-day, but he was back in the lineup today. Brad Marchand is out temporarily with a concussion, and now I really feel like there's no enforcers besides Bergeron.
No, there's not really in Boston, and that's normally how Boston hockey is built. They are built on playing physical, fast hockey. And now that Chara's back, yes, is it a big presence? The captain's back, 6'9", biggest guy in the league. It's a huge presence. But I've never really been truly sold on Chara's talent. Marchand is a huge, huge loss on the first line with Bergeron and Eriksson, and it's really going to make a big difference. Hopefully he can come back soon, and Boston needs to find ways to score. They're not getting the job done, and when they get the lead, they need to find ways to sustain the lead.
That's all we have this week. Stay tuned for more hockey games coming your way. This has been Ice Time.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our baseball segment, getting to third base. This one's solely devoted this time to the League Division Series. We have both the ALDS and the NLDS in full swing. Game 5s will be coming up in the ALDS. As for the NLDS, it has yet to be seen. And so right now, we actually want to quickly update you saying that at this present moment, we have the Royals and the Astros going to the bottom of the ninth, with the Royals up 9-6 at Minute Maid Park. And then the Blue Jays are currently up 7-0 against the Rangers in the third inning. And so going along with that, Justin, we'll start with you over here. The ALDS, both teams have struggled. Actually, neither team has won at home except for one game won by the Houston Astros. The Astros and the Royals have both won once at home. But yeah, both these games are what seems to be going for a Game 5 right now. Solid pitching, solid offense right around. What's your takeaway so far based off how the series have gone?
So far, I don't know. I think it's a great playoff matchup in general. It's obviously tight. It's going to go to Game 5. When it comes down to it, I think the team with the more experience is going to take it home. I think the Rangers are going to end up winning, and I think the Royals are going to end up winning. I just think they have that. I know the Rangers especially have a lot of experience, and they've also experienced a lot of heartbreak in the years. They've had chances to win World Series, go to World Series, and they've lost it in clutch games. So I expect the Rangers to really finish up the series against the Blue Jays. I don't think that the Blue Jays have any sort of experience like the Rangers. Mm-hmm. And the Royals were there last year. They still want that shot at a World Series, which they had last year. I think the the Royals are going to close it out.
Yeah, I think, though, we're definitely looking at a Royals team that they're still great. They're still a good team, but was last year more of like a fluke in terms of they made it to the World Series? I have no doubt that they're worthy of being in the postseason. But, should they make it that far, and will they make it this far as well? The Blue Jays, we obviously saw, they are an offensive powerhouse, leading the league this year in slugging, home runs, and doubles, but only just got their first win in the series last night, thanks to a 3-run home run by Troy Tulowitzki. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I think the upper hand, the more experienced team will always come out at the end. Dan, let's go switch it on over to the NLDS, starting with, obviously, the Cardinals and the Cubs, who also play tonight, as well as the Mets and Dodgers, who are also playing tonight. All 4 games are on today. So let's start over with the Cubs and Cardinals. And, this young team is still going. The Cinderella story, the Back to the Future team is still on their track to win. So.
Yeah, the Cubs, they're performing pretty well. I think they've certainly, you said they're a young team, and much like the Astros, they've kind of managed to live up to the hype and live it up to the stage. I talked about this last week when we discussed the wild card game, about whether or not the Astros could handle playoffs at Yankee Stadium. Mm-hmm. They did very well. Dallas Keuchel threw a gem, and they pulled it out. The Cubs, I think they're the same. The Cardinals are that playoff experienced team, and the Cubs are going toe-to-toe with them round for round every way. I think their performance is to be praised. They have Arrieta going in Game 3, which always gives them an advantage because he's been magical since August 1st. I mean, he's ERA like .3 since August 1st, which is ridiculous. The
only 2 home runs that he's let up and the only loss that he's gotten was thanks to that no-hitter throw.
It was the no-hitter for Cole Hamels. So I think that certainly gives them an advantage in Game 3. The Cardinals starting pitching has been interesting. I've been surprised with the names they've gone with.
Of course.
John Lackey Game 1, Jaime Garcia Game 2.
I
expected some Michael Wacha in there, but maybe they're lining up Wacha for Arrieta, which would be an interesting matchup for sure. But Arrieta's, like I said, has been ridiculous. So advantage Cubs in that area.
I mean, obviously,
and at Wrigley Field, I think gives them an advantage as well.
And Joe Maddon brings a whole new culture. Also, it should be noted that the Cardinals have not won a World Series when they've gone into the postseason with 100 wins since the 60s. So maybe that, misfortunate kind of like unfortunate history is on their side. But the other NLDS game going on, or series going on, between the Los Angeles Dodgers and obviously your beloved New York Mets. Dan, I feel like you have some words from last night's game, or 2 nights ago.
I do have some words for the game 2 nights ago. I would try to talk about the game as a whole, but I can't because the only thing anyone has been talking about is the Chase Utley takeout slide in the 7th inning. Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is going to be one of our newer segments. We're going to do Fantasy 411. As football season is in full swing, we're going to talk fantasy football. And the biggest news probably for your fantasy team, as well as probably almost every league out there, is you're going to suffer from Jamal Charles' injury. He went down with a non-contact knee injury, and frankly, it doesn't look great for the rest of his season. So we want to help you find that sleeper who you can pick up, who's going to pick up some of that production. So Vince, I'm going to start with you. What are some names that you might have for the people out there who had Jamal Charles?
Well, an easy fix to look at is his replacement, Niall Davis, who probably is going to get the bulk of his carries. Maybe he won't be as explosive or productive, but he's definitely going to get the mileage, and he's going to potentially give you the same, not the same point value, but he could be a nice replacement. Also, you could look for teams that are not really going to be airing it out based on their quarterback play. In 2 different situations, one with Brandon Weeden in Dallas, you could look at Julius Randle, probably going to be really carrying the bulk until Tony Romo comes back, so that's a short-term fix. And then if you looked at Tampa Bay and Doug Martin, he put up an explosive performance last week, I think a 33-point fantasy performance, at least in my league. He may be gone off the board now. Somebody's picked him up, but if he's still out there, he's probably the best fix to this situation.
Yeah, Doug Martin's definitely an interesting option. Personally, I think you're right in the fact that running backs with rookie quarterbacks are usually good options because a lot of teams are not going to open the whole playbook to their rookie quarterback, especially early in their first year, which is why Martin's an appealing option. And before he was hurt, 2 or 3 years ago, he was one of the top fantasy running backs in all of football, the muscle hamster as he was known back then, though I don't think he's fond of the nickname. I like it. I don't know why he doesn't like it. Anyway, Ryan, so Vince gave us 3 names. Is there a name that you might have the people look at as an option?
Well, if he's still somehow on the board, you got to go with Devontae Freeman. Granted, I don't think he's going to be on many more fantasy boards. He's been an explosive running back, 8 touchdowns in 3-4 games, and he's racking up a lot of yards. Also, I think you could fly under the radar. You could still get James Starks from the Green Bay Packers. Eddie Lacy's also a very big question mark, not as big as Jamal Charles is, but Eddie Lacy still gets injured. James Starks has come in when he's replaced Eddie Lacy and done very well, and I think he's still going to get touches. Third name, this is probably a very big pipe dream, but Arian Foster. If somebody was not as smart enough to drop him in their league and drop them from their team instead of keeping him on the bench, Arian Foster is obviously a great pickup because he's still an explosive running back, even though he's been injured.
I actually like the pick of James Starks. I think he really kind of serves as a third down back almost. He's smaller than Lacy, and he's kind of more shifty, and maybe he's a quicker option at catching passes out of the backfield than Lacy. So I think PPR points per reception, if you're in one of those, that's an interesting option to look at. Doug Martin, I think, as well, had a receiving touchdown this past week. And as you said, Lacy's been battling an injury. He's got an ankle thing. Really, for the last 2 years, he's had an ankle thing. So certainly Starks' touches are still relevant and enough to keep him relevant, to keep him getting points every week. We'll shift away from that, and we're going to take a little deep dive here into the new kicking rules, more specifically the extra point rule. They've been playing havoc with a lot of these kickers. A lot of kickers are having issues. We've seen a lot more misses, both the field goals and extra points, than we've seen in years past. What do you think? Are there any kickers that are on the chopping block, you think, of being cut from their NFL teams and therefore being useless in fantasy, or some smaller known options that people might want to look into? Ryan, we can start with you this time.
You got to say Josh Scobie's on the hot seat. He's not had any real great success. He's been struggling a lot. Granted, extra points are now 33-yard field goals. So guys are kicking field goals as well that are shorter than the extra points. I'm still not a huge fan of the whole extra point moving back to the 15-yard line. I feel you've earned the right to at least get an extra point from working for 6. I think the Steelers' approach to it, as a side comment, is a very interesting approach of going for 2 more often than not. But I think Scobie's on the hot seat. There aren't that many kickers that have really been consistent. I can really name Gostowski, Robbie Gould, Vinatieri, obviously, because he's just money. Mason Crosby, even though he's missed one. There's a very, and even Nick Folk. But I'd have to say Josh Scobie is definitely on the hot seat.
Well, I'm inclined to agree, if not only because he's missed, because the Steelers like to go for 2, and they've started going for 2. Whether one is because of the other, it's kind of a bit of a circle, but that's certainly a good point. Vince, do you have a name to add to the list, or do you agree with what Ryan had to say?
I would agree. I think Josh Scobie, at the present moment, is cut from the Steelers, so he's no longer even in football. So if you're not aware of that, he's gone. And possibly a name to pick up might be the Chiefs kicker by the name of Ken Zaro. He just recently, when they played the Bengals a couple weeks ago, he had 6 field goals, so that's 18 points right there. He's been fairly consistent, and the Chiefs really don't have an explosive offense. They're not going to score many touchdowns, so that may be a bit of a risk, but he'll definitely get lots of field goal attempts, and he's been consistent enough that maybe you might want to pick him up if he's a free agent, or you can pick him up off waivers in your league.
All right, and I believe that is all the time we have for today's Fantasy 411. Be sure to keep checking back every week to get your updates of injuries and some replacement players who might be flying under the radar. We got more Sports Zone coming up after this.
Hello, and welcome back to our final segment of Sports Zone. Thumbs up, thumbs down, my favorite segment. As you know, we go all throughout, whether it's sports or just life in general, saying the good and the bad, and sometimes the ugly. And I'm joined right here with Rachel and Ryan, and so let's start over with Ryan and work our way in. Go ahead.
I got to go thumbs up to my favorite team, the New York Rangers. 3-0, playing incredible hockey right now, definitely in top flight form. I hope they can keep it rolling tomorrow night against Winnipeg. That'll be a big matchup. Thumbs down to Brian Billick for saying kickers are not real football players. Kickers are real football players, and sometimes they're the last line of defense on tackling a guy like, I don't know, for example, Darren Sproles, who returns tons of touchdowns, or Devin Hester. Sometimes they're the last line of defense, so I would say they're real football players.
My thumbs up this week goes to Steven Stamkos, tallied his 500th career point. Good for him. Guy's a great, tough leader, and I just really like seeing him back out on the ice after Sean Thornton pummeled his head into the ice in Boston a few years ago. I'd have to say I think my thumbs down, although Notre Dame won against Navy, that was maybe the most disappointing first quarter I think I've ever seen from the Fighting Irish. I mean, they played. I just saw it go by. First down, second down, third down, fourth down. Didn't get a single gain of yardage. I'm seriously disappointed. However, thumbs up to the freshman kicker, Justin Yoon. He really made himself known this weekend and put in a huge effort, and it is going to pay off. I would bet he's going to be in every game the rest of the season.
All right. No, she pointed at me when she said freshman kicker. I mean, I know I'm that good, but whatever. Also, it's good to know that Americans still undefeated in football. I guess we can start off thumbs up to the Eagles. They actually played a full game of football for once, dismantling the Saints handily, 39-10. Or well, actually they scored at the end, so 39-17. Thumbs down goes to the Flyers, starting the season 0-1-1. Despite the fact that Dave Haxtell is supposed to obviously bring in a whole new regime, a whole new era to Flyers hockey, it hasn't been the easiest start. Whether that's just been, I guess beginning of the season kind of jitters and working things out, who knows? Thumbs up to the fact that, in case you haven't noticed, we've upgraded.
Woo!
We're using our 1080p cameras and whatnot, finally, because we were the last show to do this, and it's going well. Few technical difficulties kind of drawing us back. We have to cut out some of the show. Thumbs up to Cody Cohen for coming in and helping us out. Though thumbs down for the fact that this segment alone, you will never see this, but it took us 3 tries. Thanks to Vincent Salandro over here dropping his phone and just causing everything to go just up in flames. I don't know. But yeah, I probably had a few others. I can't remember them. Whatever.
What's the Eagles' record going to be at the end of this year, Deepak?
Oh yeah, hey, 13-3, baby. We're still on pace. Super Bowl bound. And if you were to ask me who's going to Super Bowl, I have one answer for you: those who have tickets. Now, that's all I got for thumbs. And so basically, a big thanks to obviously my co-producer and co-host Dan Legnato, Rachel Hotmeyer, Ryan Siegel, Vincent Salandro, Justin White, who had to leave early, and Cody Cohen. Obviously, if you're just being a stellar guy, we could drag him in even though he's in the middle of eating food and just make him feel, just so overwhelmed by everything. He's great, and we love him. And Cody, join us forever. Anyway, that's all the time we have for SportsZone because Dan's rushing me. I'm Deepak Bhagat. We'll see you next week.
Took it away momentarily, got it out in front. There's a chance of a shot. It's scored! Eichel! Jack Eichel! And Buffalo is on the board on the power play. And the #1 draft choice in Buffalo is making history in the team's first game with him wearing number 15.
Some noise in this joint, man!
Hello and welcome back to our final segment of Sports Zone. It's our premier segment, my favorite, obviously. Thumbable. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I call it thumbable, no one else does. Sorry.
Cut.
Damn it. Stop.